AI in online media. Welcome back to Techstination. I'm Fred Fishkin. Joining us from LiveOne is founder and CEO Rob Ellen. Hi, Rob.
Hey, Fred. How are you today?
Terrific. Well, great to meet you. LiveOne is a global digital media company, parent company of Slacker, bringing lots of innovation to digital entertainment. Let's give the audience a little more of an overview of what LiveOne is all about, because you're about a lot of things.
Yeah, simplifying it, we're one of the 12 music subscription platforms on Earth, right? Next to Spotify and Sirius and Apple and Amazon, that is really focused on original programming, and has built a very unique model, right? That is more of a lean back experience, more like Sirius, but really with creative, unique content and our own original programming across audio, video, podcasting, live streaming, pay-per-view, and with multiple different revenue streams, tied to that, using a social element to that to actually drive audiences and keep that audience engaged. So we're a creator first platform focused on super fans, starting with music and pop culture around music.
How did it come about, Rob?
Yeah, so great question. So I had come off building Digital Turbine. So, my background in Digital Turbine, knock on wood, was one of the greatest runs maybe in the history of NASDAQ, right? We built the company from scratch. We started it, came up with some concept, acquired 8 companies, and literally almost went out of business in 2008 when the market crashed. Survived it, and the stock ran from 40 cents to a $106 high, right? And created about 10 billion, $11 billion worth of value. And so same thing here is I try to find a wave to jump on. I'm not usually the guy that's going to create that wave. That wave is already built, and then I try to combine media and technology, right? That convergence of media and technology, and find a unique sweet spot for us. And where we found our sweet spot here is I originally bought a music club in London called London Live, and from that I streamed a TV show that we created called London TV. And that TV show reached 70 countries and 300 million people. And when I saw that, it was a blinking green light to where we could live stream to the entire world digitally. If we could do it across cable and satellite, it's going to be a lot easier digitally. So the next acquisition we did was Slacker Radio. We acquired Slacker Radio. I used to own Kazaa, had a great run with Kazaa, but very hard to ever figure out how to make money direct to consumer. We bought Slacker Radio, doing 20 million in revenues, losing $10 million a year, $180 million spent on building out that technology, 45 patents. And we took that company and we quickly morphed it and turned it from just audio into video, live streaming, pay-per-view, podcasting. And this year we'll do 140 to $155 million in revenues and make, well over $20 million of EBITDA.
Just awesome. So you're looking to make more use of AI. In what ways?
Well, we're looking at all of it, right? This is the first inning of AI. We're always going to be at the forefront. We were at the forefront of VR. We've been at the forefront of NFTs, right? We're the same thing here. We want to be at that forefront of technology, and I'm fascinated with what's happening in AI. I think a lot of it is going to go away, but there are some amazing and magical things. And so everything from creating music channels using AI, from finding sounds and beats and music to enhance our music using AI. Our podcasts, we've put them in bilingual, right? And moving them from English speaking to Spanish and eventually to multiple other languages. I think there's amazing dynamics in understanding, most important as a creative first platform, understanding your super fans. Who is that audience? What's the demographic of that audience, and understanding what they're looking for. And when you do that, you do the same thing for advertisers and for sponsors. So I think there are so many unique ways to use AI. We're learning, we're testing. We have multiple partnerships with AI companies, and you'll see us usually in the forefront of all this. And you'll see us with the biggest companies in the world who are building on AI to be able to utilize that from ChatGPT on down.
And you're looking to use the AI, you mentioned the languages, using AI to do the language translation?
Yeah, deeper than just language translation. We want our creators, right, those super creators, to be talking to their super fans, and if they're relevant and they fit, that the language can move from English to Spanish. We don't want it to just be in Spanish. We want it to be Adam Carolla or Jeremiah, whoever that talent is, speak to them in their voice, but with making sure that the language is translated right to Spanish and to the Spanish speaking audience.
What about the Apple Vision Pro? Do you see yourself programming for that?
Oh, it's magical. It's mad. I get a chill. Like, I just used it for the first couple of times, and we were the first ones ever to stream music festivals in VR. We streamed Back to the Beach with Samsung, and we streamed a beautiful music festival in Outside Lands with Facebook, right? So we were the first in the world to do an entire music festival, and the comfort level, right? How much more comfortable it is, how much smaller it is, right? There's still a long way to go. This is the beginning of where that AR and VR is going, but really transformative compared to where Oculus was, up until now. These glasses are way more comfortable, and I could just imagine, watching. I could be sitting on a plane watching cinematic, movies, watching while sitting on a plane. And there's so much more use for, obviously, with music. It's just a beautiful experience, and you probably go back all the way to Oculus when they did Coldplay. That first concert ever shot for VR was magical. We've been in the forefront of all that, and we will absolutely be working with Apple on transformative ways of seeing content and experiencing content.
Describe for the audience here how this works, because it would seem to many of us that Apple is a competitor of yours in some areas. Google, Amazon, these companies that you've mentioned, Spotify and more, it would seem that they're your competitors, but you're jumping on a wave and working with them to some extent, it seems.
Yeah, so we're a small company. We're nimble, right? We're partners with every one of them. So we're partners. Our podcast is streamed across Spotify and Apple and Samsung and so on. And same thing with our audio, right? Our app is in the App Store, right? A Slacker Radio and our LiveOne apps in the App Store. So we're always going to work with those larger players. Most of my businesses, Digital Turbine, was built off the backs of carriers distribution and hardware distribution in mobile. This company, because we're both audio and video, will be across literally so many different verticals. From we've been partners with Samsung to Verizon to T-Mobile to, most important, with Elon Musk. We're the radio inside of all the Tesla cars, and we're so fascinated by what he's doing in terms of self-driving cars and utilizing AI in that. We fully expect to have our video in those cars as well, and so we're always going to be at the forefront in that leadership position in it. And we're always going to partner with the larger players in the space.
I think I read about a new partnership you may have bringing audio books into Teslas. Is that right?
Yeah, I can't be more excited about this. It's what we're doing with audio books. We went from audio to live streaming and video, right? Now we moved to podcasts, right? In 2020, we've just added 180 podcasts inside the Tesla car, right? Effectively exclusive. There are no other cars you can get them. You can upload them, but you can't get it directly from going on to going onto the platform inside of Tesla. And next, we're going to be adding audiobooks, and I'm really excited about and really energized about where that's going.
Just terrific. So, what are the biggest trends that you're seeing now in podcasting? I mean, is this at its apex, or is it just getting started? Where is this?
And we went through the first cycle, $28 billion of acquisitions, right? Podcasters and podcast networks. It was a seller's market for the last 4 years. It's now a buyer's market for the podcast network, right? And so you're starting to see some breaks in it, and you're starting to see some understanding of distributors figuring out what is best for them. I think Spotify said it best, right? They learn from experience. They bought amazing original programming. It was brilliant buying Joe Rogan. There's no one bigger now, right? And just the same with Sirius, with Howard Stern. But now what they're realizing is they need to give them distribution across everywhere, right? Because otherwise they're going to lose a big piece of their audience, right? And so I think this is a fascinating time for a company of our size. We're growing our podcast business. We've added 24 podcasts in the last 9 months. What we publicly said is we have 100 podcasts in our pipeline, right? These are existing podcasts that are averaging around 350,000 plus a year in revenues. They need a home that can really babysit and handhold them and white glove it and really be able to do the full 360 play for them. And then we're going to distribute it across Spotify and Apple and everybody else anyway. So they're going to get that content onto those big platforms, but I think they're realizing that it's a mistake, that they need the Joe Rogans and they need the Howard Sterns. Doing these smaller podcasts isn't going to be helpful to their business, and it's a lot of work that they're not really trained or geared up to do.
And your thoughts about subscriptions versus advertising as business models today?
I love both. So, we started with, when we bought Slacker Radio, we were 95% subscription, right? For the first 2.5 years. Today, post-COVID, with the acquisition of Podcast One and a move into advertising and sponsorship, we're about 50-50. So we do, $150 million of revenues next year. It'll almost be equal between the two of them. I think it's important to have both. I think it's, opportunist to have both of it. I think Netflix, what they've just done moving into advertising, is brilliant. And Spotify obviously is across both of them. So the demographics in the audience is moving. It's getting younger. It's getting more dynamic. As you look at podcasting, there's more and more people. The habitual behavior of the consumer is moving deeper into podcasts, and more sponsors moving in. The maturation of that business is coming. And then you'll see again in a year or two, you're going to see all the big guys buying up everybody again, right? Because you'll go through that cycle. We've grown from 400 million to $1.2 billion. My humble opinion is, I used to say it was going to 5 to 7 billion. I believe it's going to 7 to 10 billion dollars. So you're going to see, a second round of this coming in the next year or two. And it's a telltale sign when you saw Joe Rogan side for 250 million last week, and you saw Smartlist move from Amazon over to Sirius, $100 million a year. There's going to be more and more advertising. There's going to be more and more consumers. And the smartest thing I've heard in podcasting is there's not enough hours in the day to cover all the content you're looking for.
Well, that's another issue, I guess, from the consumer's perspective. There's so many out there that how do you winnow it down if you're a consumer that this is what I want to watch or listen to?
Well, search is a real problem, and I think AI is going to be very helpful in that. But search is a real problem in podcasting. The best way to find your next podcast is off the podcast host. There's so much trust in your host, right? You go to dinner and people argue who's the best host in sports, who's the best in history, who's the best in medicine, right? And everyone has their own opinion, right? But the best way to find the next podcast is usually from that podcaster you trust.
Terrific. For more info, where's the best place to go?
Well, I mean, listen, the best way to go to find podcasts?
Well, to find more about all that you're doing in the company.
Sure. So we're a public company. The symbol is LVO, is LiveOne. Okay. We're on NASDAQ National. We just took our podcast and spun off, first time ever done in history. We spun off the podcast business because it's the only public podcast company in the world on a national exchange. We spun that off under the symbol PODC. And you can read about both companies, right? And you can go to them anywhere from Bloomberg to any of wherever you go for your information on public companies. And, I'm really excited about where we're going with both companies and where we're headed. And the team we have is a world-class team. Our management team in podcasting has over 65 years of history. Sue McNamara ran sales for Howard Stern, ran Mel Karmazin sales. Right? All of them were trained under Norm Patitz, one of my favorite people who's passed away last year, and one of the great pioneers in radio and podcasting. So we got a great team here on the audio side of it. Same thing on Slacker Radio. Our team has been together for over 10 years and, has built, really one of the greatest platforms in music. Those 12 platforms that are left in music, right? We're the smallest of them. Right? The rest of them are billion to trillion dollar plus companies. I think we're really uniquely positioned based on our pricing. With the lowest price of anyone, we're a third of most of our competitors. The most original programming, as well as the unique service you can provide by being a small, nimble company.
Well, congratulations on all that you've done and the innovations and catching all these waves. Rob Ellin, thanks for spending time with us.
Great. Thank you. Have a great day, and thank you for having me join.